Okay, so today we're going to talk about drug treatment success rates. And more specifically, I'm going to be talking about what you as family members can be doing to help improve your loved one's chances for treatment success. So if you are a family member who either currently has a loved one who's in treatment for a drug or alcohol problem, or even if you're just taking the first steps towards addressing a potential problem, but you realize that it could be moving in the direction of treatment, you probably have some questions or some concerns along the lines of how do we know this rehab is going to work? And so my specific intention for this episode here today is to share some things with you about things that are totally within your control that you can start literally doing today that can have a dramatic impact on how treatment ends up going for your loved one. And so that's what we got on store for today. Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Savage. This is the RehabWorks Family Support Program, where I am here helping families navigate the road to successful recovery for your loved one. And our topic here today, success rate, treatment success, it actually goes to the foundation of the whole reason that I created the RehabWorks program. Because quite honestly, there's nothing that bothers me more than to watch families go through the ordeal of a failed treatment episode. And if we're going to be talking the ugly truth here, it happens a lot. I ran a treatment program for many years, and out of that experience, I ended up deciding I'm going to commit myself to working with families because I saw how much there is that can be done just helping families navigate treatment and get the most out of treatment to give their loved one the best chance possible for treatment success. So that's why I created RehabWorks. So again, this is like the very first topic to be talking about. What can families be doing to improve the chances for treatment success? So to start this, I'll share this. I used to go into, I ran my own treatment program, and so ran the family program for that. But after that, I used to go into other treatment programs as a guest presenter. And at the beginning of my presentations, meeting a family group for the first time, I'd start off and I'd say, I'm going to ask what might sound like a silly question, but I just want you to go ahead and answer this. How many people here are hoping that your loved one's treatment is going to be successful? And they'd sort of, okay, that sounds like sort of a silly question. Excuse me. And I'd say, no, seriously, raise your hand if you're hoping that your loved one's treatment is going to be successful. And so, okay, well, yeah, of course we do. And I'd get them and they'd all raise their hands. And then I'd say, how many of you even did some research on like treatment success rates, maybe called this place and asked them their success rate? A lot of them would raise their hand. And I'd say, the thing about treatment success rates, if we're going to be really honest, you may have been reading about places or talking to some places that say they have a 95% success rate. And all I'll say is that, when it comes down to it, we can sort of get statistics to say whatever it is that we want them to say, right? And that opens the door to a whole conversation about how do we define treatment success. I'm not going to get into that here, but that's a broad, my point is you can get statistics to say what you want them to say. As I said, I used to own my own treatment program, and so I would get that question a lot. It was an adolescent program, so these would always be parents. And when they'd say, what's your success rate? I'd look them in the eye and I'd say, you know what? Our success rate's lousy. I'd let that sink in for a second. And these are parents that are getting ready to put their trust in me and to help treat their kid. And I'd go on and I'd say, is it because we have a bad program? No, I think we have actually a really good program. But the truth is, adolescent treatment success rates are really lousy. And again, I'd let that sink in. And then I'd say my more formal response to that question is our success rate is either 0% or it's 100%. It depends on the individual. But then I would go on to say to the parents, and you would be well advised to consider treatment success as an interactive process in which the family has much more to do with the outcome than is generally realized. Now, that's one of the most important things I can share with you. I want you to write that down on a piece of paper. Go tape that on your refrigerator. Again, if you have a loved one who's currently in treatment, this is a really important thing for you to consider. Treatment success is an interactive process in which the family has much more to do with the outcome than is generally realized. And then I would go on and say, and so what that means is I want you to become students of addiction. I want you to learn everything you possibly can about addiction and how treatment works. And by doing that, that's going to help you avoid what I call the substitute teacher phenomenon. Anybody want to take a guess where I'm going with the substitute teacher phenomenon? Here, we'll explain. Think about this. When clients are in treatment, residential treatment, they're there 24/7. You know, even if they're in outpatient treatment, they're there. The point being, they're there many, many hours a week, and the family is not there. Clients in treatment are learning a ton about addiction and recovery and everything that goes along with it. They have groups and they have education sessions, and they're doing activities in between those groups and sessions that are reinforcing what they're learning in the groups and all that. They are getting a lot about addiction and recovery. And again, the family is not. You know, even the best of family programs, you know, you can't get near as much of the experience that the treatment clients are. And what ends up happening in this substitute teacher phenomenon, I'll let you in on a little secret. Not everything that the clients are learning are things that they want to hear or is things that they want to agree to. For example, it's a pretty common one, you know, when someone's getting sober, it's a good idea to maybe stop hanging around people who use a lot or going to certain places or participating in certain activities. You got to make some changes. And and some of those choices or options or suggestions are not always received well by the client. But so here's where the substitute teacher phenomenon comes in. If they know that you don't know something that they learned or was suggested to them that they don't agree with, what do you think the chances are that they're going to share that with you? You know, next time you come to visit, hey, guess what we learned this week? I have to stop hanging out with all my using friends. You know, they may not tell you that at all, or there's a good chance that might get reported to you with a decided spin on it. But again, like the substitute teacher phenomenon, the students are saying, oh, no, Mrs. Johnson, our regular teacher lets us do that all the time. And the substitute teacher is sort of, oh, okay, that doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense, but I get, and that's sort of, sometimes family members can relate to, I'll use the term feeling crazy, because you might be seeing something going on that sort of raises your eyebrows as to, is this right? Is this a good recovery kind of thing? But because you weren't there and you didn't learn all of this, you might not be sure, you know, and you don't want to make waves and you want to be supportive, and they get mad at you if you start asking them about that. So again, the substitute teacher phenomenon. But the solution to that, how you avoid that, is for you to become students of addiction. Learn everything you possibly can about the condition of addiction and the implications for recovery. You want to learn about how the treatment process works. And so, like I say, there is a ton of available material which makes this totally within your control. You can start researching, you can start learning about all the kind of things that I have rolling around in my head that I want you to learn. That's what my Rehab Works program is. I will put a link to that might be something that you'd be interested in. I'll put a link in somewhere around here, and you might want to take a look at that, because I packaged all this stuff up in a pretty big comprehensive program that teaches about the condition of addiction. It teaches about setting boundaries, because when you understand the implications for recovery by understanding what addiction is, that helps you set, and I like to use the term informed boundaries, drawing a little bit of distinction between just setting boundaries. Informed boundaries means that you know why the boundary that you're setting or the expectation that you have is accurate, because it lines up with what would be supporting recovery. And then also, again, learning how the treatment process works. One of the things that I do in my Rehab Works program is I teach the families how to, for lack of a better term, measure treatment progress. Here's another big one that, again, it pains me to see this happen. It does happen, way too often. Clients get discharged when there are significant cracks in the foundation for recovery. There might be issues that either didn't get addressed, and I'm not talking about even deep therapeutic issues, like the thing about, say, for example, off the top of my head, again, hanging around drug-related events. Sometimes it's advised not to go to concerts, going to the Grateful Dead, Lollapalooza, Woodstock kind of, drug, which you've been doing for the past number of years, and it's a drug-fueled event, and it might not be an advisable thing to do right after getting out of treatment. And so, say, for instance, it doesn't get brought up in treatment. The family might know the client's got tickets for the whatever fest, and they're like, I'm not sure if that's right. And it may, never even get brought up. And the client didn't say anything about the counselors, the family, and then a couple of weeks after treatment, they go to this thing. Or say it does get brought up, but it just sort of gets left at, well, we don't really agree about that. And the counselors might say, that's probably not a good idea, but it doesn't really get resolved. And that's what I mean. Or, agreeing to discharge plans, agreeing to various aspects of recommendations about relapse prevention planning. These are all standard parts of treatment that, again, the family, you can be doing your own work on learning what those things ought to look like. Granted, you might not be able to get all of that from the treatment program, because even the best treatment programs, that, are, as far as family programming, they're just not designed to be able to give the families as much education as you could benefit from. I always say, until, one of the biggest problems with treatment these days is the fact that we don't check the families in along with the clients. And that's not to say that the families are as dysfunctional as the clients are. I'm saying that from the perspective of, you don't get a chance to be immersed in the culture of all the things that's being learned in drug treatment. And a good family program, they may have you come in for a week or a intensive weekend, or at least every Sunday afternoon for a 4-hour block of group and education. Again, that's just the way the system is. But until we check families in along with the treatment clients, and I don't see that happening anytime soon, there will always be inherent gaps between the client, the family, and the treatment team. And it's those gaps where important stuff falls through the cracks. But by you learning everything that you can about treatment, that's a really good way to bridge those gaps. And again, the last thing I'll say is there's no guarantee for successful treatment. Treating addiction is a very complex process. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But what the family, if we think about a pie chart and contributors to poor treatment outcomes, the piece of lack of accountability because the family doesn't know what's supposed to be going on, that's a big piece of the pie chart that can be avoided. Again, you have it in your own control. You can start learning and taking action to figuring out how you can set informed boundaries and learn what effective support would be for your loved one. So to recap here, we talked about, first of all, we're going to assume that most people, if you have a loved one who's being treated for a substance use disorder, you probably are hoping that treatment will be successful. 2, I advise you to consider treatment success as an interactive process in which the family has much more to do with the outcome than is generally realized. Another way of saying that is I talk in Rehab Works about the car repair model. Hint, that's not a good one, as in we drop it off and come back 3 weeks later hoping that whatever went on in there is going to work. That's not the best way to approach drug treatment. Again, there's a lot of work you can be doing outside of the treatment program. And then 3, what we're going to do is become students of addiction, learning everything you possibly can about addiction and how it's treated. You can Google stuff on the internet. There's tons of resources available. Again, my Rehab Works program is something that if you have a loved one in treatment, I'd really invite you to look at that. It's a very comprehensive program and gives you it's specifically designed to take you through that process of learning how to know if treatment's working for your loved one, setting informed boundaries, etc. And if the course includes a weekly Zoom session, Q&A session with me. And so again, I'll put a link around here someplace, and you can check that out. If you got something out of this, I'd really appreciate you giving me a like on this video. Subscribe to my channel. I have a ton of material, both for family members as well as individual recovery support. Again, I hope you got something out of this, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.